With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Dick, before we go too far, I just want to, the call-in number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, too.
I don't be starting to sound like a New Yorker like me, all right?
I really...
Stay in your lane.
I really admire what Trump is doing in Ukraine and throughout the world right now. But he's meeting with Putin on Friday and in Alaska, and that may result in an end to the war. It looks like that's shaping up to be that.
Why do you say that?
Well, because everybody's predicting that, and they're having the meeting, which is very unusual for Putin to show up personally.
Is this the first time face-to-face since
I don't know.
Trump has been...
But it's really good. Mm-hmm. But let me just go through how this situation came about. After Russia invaded Ukraine, everybody in the U.S. assumed that the U.S. would stand aggressively on behalf of Ukraine. And Biden worked hard to make sure that the world did that and that NATO supported Ukraine heavily. When Trump took office, he was very suspicious of Ukraine and felt that really Putin was the key to peace in Ukraine. He felt that even though Putin had launched the invasion, that Putin had suffered significant losses among his troops. Over 1 million Russian troops have either been killed, over 100,000, or wounded so badly that they can't go back to combat. Mm-hmm. But it took, and he really began to attack Zelensky. They had a meeting in the Oval Office, that blew up because Zelensky wouldn't sign a deal giving us access to their rare earth minerals.
And he was arrogant towards the president.
And he since then agreed to it, and Trump got what he wanted. But over the last couple of months, it's become very clear that Trump is getting fed up with Russia, that he sees that Russia started this war and wants to continue it and is determined to use every bit of it to squeeze out gains for Russian territory. And Putin is in one of those positions you often get into after several years of a war, where the only real reason for fighting the war is that you've been fighting it and you can't do anything other than have victory, because if you admit defeat, you're politically dead. So in the last couple of months, there's been a swing back against Russia and in favor of Ukraine by the Trump administration. And it particularly took the form of secondary sanctions. When the United States passes a bill or Trump moves as president to stop a country from buying oil from Russia, those are sanctions. But when he actually threatens to sanction a country because it does buy oil from Russia, that's called a secondary sanction.
Got it.
And those are very important because Russia exports almost all of its oil and lives off those earnings. Like 70% of the Russian budget is because of oil exports.
70%?
Yeah, huge amounts.
Wow.
And most of those exports go to two countries, India and China. And the U.S. has been saying we're going to increase tariffs in China and in India until they stop buying Russian oil. Now, the Chinese will never stop because they're allies of Russia.
Right.
But the Indians well might, and they're very much in play. The Iran was subject to secondary sanctions like that, and it absolutely crippled them. And until Biden let them off the mat, they were dead.
Who would pick up the slack for India's oil if they have to? Who would they buy from?
That's it. OPEC has announced that it's going to increase production, and the U.S. is increasing production dramatically under Trump. And it looks like there will be no shortage of oil. And
See, that's the most important part.
Yeah, for the world.
For India.
But for India, it really means that they can afford not to buy oil from Russia. And that gives India maneuvering room. And it also gives Trump a weapon to use against Russia to stop the war. Because as long as Russia can sell its oil to India, there'll be enough demand so it can pay its bills. But if India can no longer buy its oil from Russia, it's not going to have enough money.
The same thing we did with Iran. When Biden said, sure, make all the money you want, we'll take care of you.
We're talking about India, gigantic country.
Right.
Leader in the world population, past China now. And I think that as a result, Trump has brought real pressure on Russia by saying, if you do not end this war, you will not be able to sell your oil, which is like telling Saudi Arabia they can't sell their oil. The entire economy will collapse.
And not only that, if India stops buying from you, you're not going to have enough money to run the war. So it's a twofer, what he's saying to Putin right now.
And Trump has got Russia in a squeeze play here, using India to threaten to stop buying Russian oil. And most of the Russian oil is exported these days to China and India. And if India cuts it off, Russia goes broke. So that's leading Putin to really consider ending this war. The other development is that Trump has done a very good job of getting Europe to absorb more of the costs of the war. Most of as you know, neither European nor American soldiers are involved. But the equipment being lost in Ukraine is enormous. The number of drones lost every day.
You mean Russian drones, Russian equipment?
Well, and Western.
Right.
Because we're supplying the equipment through to Ukraine. And the losses have been catastrophic on both sides. So the issue is, how do you replenish that? And the U.S.'s arsenals were running low on this stuff. And there was heavy pressure in the U.S. to try to stop aid to Ukraine because of that. But what Trump has done is to get the Europeans to produce their own equipment and give it to Ukraine, or transship American equipment to Ukraine. And that's eased this military situation a lot and given them some significant breathing room. So between Ukraine drones being made in Europe, OPEC increasing oil production so India can tell Russia to go to hell, and the whole situation is changing. And Trump is really on the verge of ending this war. And more importantly, or just as importantly, because of the success of these secondary sanctions, the U.S. really has a weapon to discipline Russia. And we haven't had that for a long time. And now the increase in global oil production, the increase in American oil production, the increase of European arms production for Ukraine has really given Ukraine a new lease on life. And the question is, do they squander it or not? Do they agree to a deal where they give up a lot of the land in the east, most of which Russia has already conquered in eastern Ukraine, in Crimea? And it's just a question of a legal document ratifying that takeover and Ukraine promising not to invade to get it back. So the obstacles...
So that's the part right there that nobody knows what would happen with Zelensky after it's over.
Yeah, but I think that a deal has been cut. I don't think Putin would be showing up to a meeting with Trump unless a deal had already been cut or was in the offing.
Interesting.
And then, Trump is on a roll internationally. In the last 6 months, he settled the war many of us didn't know was going on between Cambodia and Thailand. In Asia, he settled the war between the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a horrible place, and Rwanda. He settled the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which are the former Soviet republics right on the Iranian border. And settling those wars was no easy task, and yet he's been able to do that. And there's a lot of speculation that might entitle him to a Nobel Peace Prize, which would be politically very attractive. So it's interesting to see how this plays out, and I think Trump is on good ground on all of this stuff.
Interesting.
Now, going back home, domestically, the Department of Justice is turning things around and now is going to prosecute the prosecutor, Jack Smith.
Good for him.
And Smith really deserves that. Smith's pursuit of Trump was breathtaking in scope and timing. Racing against electoral clocks, filing briefs within the critical 60-day pre-election window, pushing for rush trials that would dominate headlines during the campaign season. Smith seemed to operate on the assumption that his Justice Department badge provided immunity from the very laws that govern political interference by federal employees. But Smith's calculation failed to account for one crucial variable. We live in a democracy, and Trump's remarkable political resilience, the American people's ability to see through partisan theatrics, have been incredible. Now the tables have turned in spectacular fashion. The U.S. Office of Special Counsel has launched an investigation into Smith himself, prosecuting the prosecutor for potential violations of the Hatch Act, the federal law designed to stop government employees from using their positions to influence the election. This irony is so rich it practically writes itself, doesn't it? Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, a Republican, triggered this investigation with a formal request that cut to the heart of the matter. Cotton's assessment nails exactly what many of us observed throughout Smith's tenure: a prosecutor who had abandoned the traditional restraint and political neutrality expected of federal law enforcement. The Hatch Act exists precisely to prevent this kind of partisan weaponization of the government. Yet Smith appeared to operate as if these rules applied to everybody but him. And now he's finally getting his comeuppance. And it's such a nice thing. What goes around comes around. Is
Karma, baby.
Literally what this is all about. When we get back, we're going to talk about the redistricting mess and a new perspective that I have on it. Let me share with you all.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
And one more time, the call-in number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222.
So stuff in Texas is heating up about the issue of reapportionment. And just to summarize it, what's going on is that normally you only redraw House districts every 10 years after you complete the census. But what the Republicans are trying to do in Texas is to have reapportionment mid-year, mid-cycle, meaning 2025, not wait until 2030. And that would be a big change. And because of Texas's population growth, that would increase the Republican majority in Congress by 5 seats. And we may need those 5 seats if the election for Congress is as close as it's been in the past.
Did I read that what they had there in Texas wasn't exactly fair as far as their report?
Well, I was going to say that the entire process of redistricting has gotten so out of sync with the popular vote. In 2024, Republicans won the popular vote for the House of Representatives by 2.6 points, and yet they got a majority in Congress of only 220 to 215. And in 22, they won the popular vote by 2.7 points, and they secured only a 5-seat majority. So the results are really not indicative of the magnitude of the Republican victory. And part of this is because of reapportionment. Part of it is because of the growth of the Republican Party. Part of it is because of the growth of Texas and Florida and the shrinkage of New York and California. But another huge part of it, probably the major contributor, is that illegal immigrants are counted in drawing the census lines, because the Constitution says that the census has to include all people who are inhabitants of each state. Inhabitants.
Can that be changed?
Yeah, well, it's a constitutional amendment. And it was passed after the Civil War to make sure that freed black slaves would be counted fully in the reapportionment.
Okay.
Now, before that happened, before the Civil War, the South demanded, when the Union was formed, that slaves be counted in the census, but as only 5/8 of a person. So the concession was the South would get the ability to get representation in Congress and therefore in the Electoral College, but only 5/8 of the same representation as freed whites would get.
Oh, my God.
Even though it was clear that the blacks couldn't vote, and they were just like the furniture at that point. And but the South clung to that as a method of keeping political power. And it was a major cause of the Civil War that it looked like that was going to be taken away. And after the North won the Civil War, it was taken away. And it
went to 100%.
Went back to 100%, right. So now Trump is saying, hey, with the massive number of illegals in the United States, like 20 million of them, we can stop them from voting in elections, we hope. We work really hard at it. But we can't stop them from being counted in the census. And that means reapportionment and congressional districts are all awarded based on the number of people, whether they be voters, citizens, or not.
Or illegals.
Illegals,
Doesn't matter.
are
Got
counted.
it. Okay.
And the result of that has been a huge bias in the House of Representatives in favor of Democrats. And that bias is like a 20 or 30 seat bias for the same reason the South had it, because of slaves, but in this case, people who are counted but who aren't supposed to be here legally, most of whom vote Democrat. So the Republicans are hollering that we need to make changes at each state to compensate for the inequity of the way the census falls. And Trump
is the
has
census,
proposed,
I got to ask you a question, Dick. Is the census solely because of what we figure out, what we're talking about right now for the voters, or it's just across the board census so the government knows how many people are in the country?
across the board, the census has nothing to do with voters.
Right, got it. Okay.
It's used heavily as the legal basis for distributing federal aid, federal spending,
Okay,
representation in the House. But more importantly than any of that, the number of electoral votes a state gets is decided by the number of House members it has. It's the number of House members plus the number of senators. So the more the reapportionment counts illegal immigrants, the more it biases the presidential elections in favor of those illegal immigrants, in favor of the party they vote for, in favor of the Democrats.
So you almost have to have two counts. One for voters, you know what I mean? A census that's different from that particular census, that it's really, you have to count only legal people here.
That's what Trump wants. And he's ordered the Department of Commerce that runs the census to count only the number of people that are here legally.
Got it.
Now, the courts have held you can't do that. You have to count everybody because that's what the Constitution says.
This can be separate, can't it?
And they could be severed, but you don't want to. But then you lose the advantage. The Democrats keep their advantage. So by counting illegal people,
Sure,
it's the same garbage that the South used to keep its grip on the Union before the Civil War. in that case, it was counting people that can't vote. In this case, it's counting again people that can't vote and who are here illegally.
So it almost goes hand in hand what we were doing with illegals not to vote during the election.
Absolutely, and far worse, because we could stop illegals from voting, but we can't stop illegals from being counted in the census and therefore allocating seats based on that. Mm-hmm. Now, Trump is going to challenge that legally, and there's going to be some indication that if you're not here legally, you're not here, and that the Constitution should be interpreted that only legal people should be counted. I think Trump will litigate that. I think Trump will lose that. And I think that ultimately the reapportionment is going to be a major problem because it is so fixed and so biased in favor of the Democrats. There would be no question that the House would be Republican, and there would be no question that the Republicans would have a big edge in the Electoral College.
If it was an honest count.
If it was done honestly, based on people that really should be counted or entitled to vote. And by letting in tens of millions of illegal immigrants under the Biden administration, probably a total of 20 million now living here, at least 10 added while Biden was president. While he hasn't changed the presidential election, he certainly has changed the Electoral College and changed Congress, because those people have to be included in the census. And it becomes one of the absolutely key issues in our system, in the Constitution. And the Republicans are trying to fix it on a state-by-state basis. The Democrats are yelling that that's unconstitutional. And the Democrats are probably right. It probably is.
Well, the argument in court for us, for the government, for Trump, would be that was done, as you just said, because of slavery.
Yep.
It's not anymore. So to figure it out in a new.
The original reason for counting illegals is that the former slaves, were considered illegal, and in the Confederacy, and the Northerners wanted to make sure that the slaves were counted, but
that's over.
That's over. So that's the background of this situation. Now, in terms of Texas.
Wait, hold on. We got. Do you see this right here? Larry from Brooklyn. Yeah. Illegals can't be counted towards the census.
Yeah, let's see.
Hi, Larry. Larry from Brooklyn.
Hi, Larry.
Yeah, hi, Dick. As far as I don't think you can analogize the migrants to the slaves, because let's say, for example, all the migrants were fugitives from justice from Mexico. They were all wanted for something, okay, which a lot of them are anyway. But then they would not be counted. They would be fugitives. So they're fugitives for justice in America because they're wanted also for crossing the border illegally, which is a crime.
That's an argument that the Republicans make, but I don't think it's going to stand up in the court. The tradition and the Constitution has always said the number of people who are here are the number of people who are here. And it's
no matter what, whether we're refugees
only when you throw them out that you don't count them. That's one of the big reasons for deportation, but it's going to take a decade for the Trump deportations to really weigh in to eliminate this advantage that the Democrats have. We have a caller from Texas.
Thank you, Larry.
Michael. Hey, Michael.
Michael from Texas.
Michael?
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, this is Dick.
So,
where are you from in Texas?
Anyway, my question is regarding...
Where are you from, Michael?
In Texas.
I'm from right outside of Austin.
Good.
Originally from Houston, but I relocated recently.
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Go ahead.
So, as far as the DOJ doing the referrals for a grand jury for the folks related to the Trump Russia cover-up, what is going to ultimately happen with the designation of jurisdiction? Is it going to be D.C. or Florida, where they went in and did the raids on Mar-a-Lago and various other things? Or, if it goes to D.C., it's going to be a tough challenge. So,
I think the Justice Department will bring it where it wants. And since DOJ is Republican, they're not going to do it in D.C., but they could do it in Florida. They could do it in Texas, and I think they'll be able to keep away from the D.C. system.
And they could do that anywhere they want. Go to any state and file.
Can bring the case in any state they want to if it's a federal prosecution, and these are. But let me go back to the.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Of the issue of reapportionment, now what in Texas, the Democrats have raised holy hell about the Republicans reapportioning in the middle of the process. They've said that's so unfair, that's unconstitutional, it's never happened before, it's a power grab. And the Democrats walked out of the state legislature. They refused to go attend. And they said that because there's not a quorum, the House and the Senate in Texas could not meet, could not pass laws. So Governor Abbott sent out a statement saying real Texans don't run from a fight. But that's exactly what most of the Texas House Democrats just did. Rather than doing their job and voting on urgent legislation, they fled Texas to deprive the House of the quorum necessary to meet and conduct business. And he said the derelict House members, the Democrats, must return to Texas and be in attendance when the House reconvenes on Monday last week. Anybody who won't do so risks being ousted from his job because of dereliction of duty.
The governor can do that?
Well, we don't know. He's asked the Attorney General to do that, and we'll see if he's able to do that. But more concretely, it's going to lead to an interstate war because the Democrats in states like New York, California, Illinois, and Michigan, where they have a majority of the congressmen, are trying to increase their support to close to 100% by redrawing their lines in this coming election of 2026 and following suit on what the Republicans are doing in Texas. And the issue is that the thing that the Democrats are tripping over their own feet because they have reformed reapportionment in most of their states by setting up commissions to draw the lines, which lift it out of politics in a sort of a magical solution. So Governor Newsom in California is moving ahead with plans to hold a special election in November for voters to approve a ballot measure that would ultimately allow the Democrats to pass a new House map in time for the 26th election. So what they're trying to do is to eliminate the Independent Districting Commission, or at least keep it out of business for a year, while they can redraw the lines in California to give them the 5 seats that the Democrats are going to.
Wait, what happened to the
are going to pick up in Texas?
What happened to the constitutional right of this whole thing? The counting and the census, and now he could just redraw?
Well,
how does this work? Yeah, you have to explain this to me.
The census says, as I said, that you have to count everybody,
right?
Whether they are legal or not.
Got it.
And the census also says that every 10 years there has to be a census.
Got it.
But doesn't say that you can't redraw district lines in the interim.
Got it.
That's
I see.
Entirely left up to the states. And what's going on is that the Democratic states are threatening
but hold on.
to make their delegations entirely Democrat.
I got to get this through my head, my thick Italian skull. So they could redraw the lines even though the census says something else about the amount of people out of there? That's what I don't understand what you just...
The census controls how many representatives each state gets.
Right.
But does not say within the state how you draw those lines.
Okay.
And the Republicans have gerrymandered to give them more seats than they should in Florida and Texas. And Republicans are doing the same, and Democrats are doing the same now in California, New York, and a couple of other states. And we'll see where this ends up. My own view is that the whole system needs to be changed. That you shouldn't have a situation where the congressional vote is so narrow because of people who are not legal.
Right.
And while it'll take years for enough deportations to crank up and change the census numbers, maybe in time for 2030, they may not be. I personally believe you should eliminate district lines entirely, and I think that if a majority of the people in a state vote Democrat, then I believe all of the congressmen from that state should be Democrat.
Oh.
And same if they're Republican. And if that were the case, the Republicans would have an almost permanent House majority. So there are two ways to achieve it. You could do that, or you could do what they're proposing now, which is a
separate counting.
Separate count. But bear in mind that all this problem is going to go away because of the deportations.
Right.
With Trump throwing over 1 million people a year out of the country, almost all of whom would be counted as Democrats. Doesn't matter how they vote; they'd be counted by the census.
And the other way,
and
Dick,
they would give the representation.
And the other way would be an amendment, but that's almost impossible, right?
Yeah,
you won't get enough hard. Democrat. Yeah, we're about to do our little break here. So when we get back, we'll talk about whatever we're going to talk about. Maybe more of this.
Well, let's go to Eddie.
No, we got to take a break.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you on the other side.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
All right.
We've been focusing incredibly on illegal immigrants in the U.S., who are largely people that sneak over the border or on the Biden walk here with ticker tape parade and are let into the country illegally. But more than half of the people that are here illegally came in legally through visas. They were allowed to come in. And then when the visa lapsed, they just stayed here and overstayed their visa.
Yeah, so if you have to put a bond up, you're not going to stay.
Well,
you want your money
back.
back.
Rubio is proposing.
So the State Department is proposing requiring applicants for business and tourist visas to post a bond of up to $15,000 to enter the United States, a move that will make the process unaffordable for many. In a notice to be published in the Federal Register on Tuesday, the department said it will start a 12-month pilot program under which people from countries deemed to have high overstay rates and deficient internal document security controls could be required to post bonds of $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000 when they apply for the visa. The proposal comes as the Trump administration is tightening requirements for visa applicants. Last week, the State Department announced that many visa renewal applicants would have to submit an additional in-person interview, something that was not required in the past. In addition, the department is proposing that applicants for the visa diversity lottery program have valid passports from their country of citizenship.
Yeah, so it's about time we crack down on this, and the Trump administration is doing it. The other thing that's going on is in Florida, and hopefully it'll spread throughout the country. They are passing a law that requires that all employers have to check the citizenship of the people they're employing, and that way you can get a good count of who they are, and you can target them for deportation.
Listen, these people are going to have to work for their visas now. They're going to put up a bond, and they can't just split on that and stay where they want to stay. Look at Luis. Look at our boy Luis, what he has to do with his to get into the country.
Yeah. And he's here legally.
And he's legally here.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So let's go to Trump's tariff thing. This is great. President Trump is suggesting that middle and lower income Americans could receive direct cash payments, what he referred to as a dividend, funded by revenues generated from his tariffs on foreign imports. There could be a distribution or a dividend to the people of our country. I would say for the people, this is Trump talking, for the people that would be middle income people and lower income people, we could do a dividend. He was just talking about that from Bedminster. Trump has long argued that tariffs, especially those levied on China and other major U.S. trading partners, serve not only as a tool to strengthen American manufacturing, but also as a revenue generator for the federal government. According to the U.S. Treasury, tariff imposed during Trump's presidency brought in tens of billions of dollars annually, though many economists note that the cost of those tariffs often trickle down to consumers in the form of higher prices.
And now there hasn't been a trickle down.
Right.
There's
it's been
no
slight.
inflation.
Right.
And Trump is saying take some of that revenue and give it back to people.
Yeah.
And if you understand the magnitude of it, the estimates of the Federal Reserve Board are that over 10 years there will be $2.4 trillion of extra revenue coming in from tariffs.
Right.
And 2.4 trillion as opposed to 2.7 trillion per year. The 2.4 is over 4 years, over 10 years, that the personal income taxes generate. So we literally could have gigantic decreases in the income tax,
and Senator
funded by the tariffs.
And Senator Josh Hawley proposed the American Worker Rebate Act, that's what we're talking about here. Introduced earlier this year, his bill proposed issue at least $600 per adult and dependent child as refundable tax credit, funded entirely by this tariff. This is great.
Yep,
you gotta love it.
And I think that's going to have a huge impact. Now, the other thing that's having a huge impact is that we are throwing people out of this country. We are throwing people out of this country at a record rate.
Trump's Justice Department delivered historic reversal. The numbers now emerging from Trump's Department of Justice represent nothing short of a seismic shift in American immigration enforcement. In June alone, federal prosecutors filed more than 3,000 felony cases against illegal immigrants for unlawful reentry. These are people who were deported but brazenly attempted to return. Another 3,200, another 3,000, another 3,200 cases were fired for simple illegal entry. Let me repeat that. Over 6,000 criminal cases in a single month just now. Meanwhile, Biden couldn't be bothered to prosecute even 1% of violators. Holman, who's Trump's border dude, he's great, right? He said earlier, as a matter of fact, the total number of encounters is less than half of a single day under Biden on many days. Also, none of the 6,000 were released into the U.S. Zero. President Trump has created the most secure border in history of the nation, and the data proves it, Holman declared. We have never seen numbers this low. Never. I like his double negative. To understand the magnitude of this change, consider this. Trump's DOJ is now prosecuting over 50% of all border arrests, 50%, from less than one. The first 3 months of 2025 alone saw 7,600 illegal entry prosecutions. That's nearly double the rate from the same period in 24.
And, of course, what's happening
You can't make this up.
What's happening, of course, is that is leading people to leave here.
They're outsmarting.
Self-deport, they say.
Yeah, they're outsmarting the sanctuary
and particularly
resistance.
When you add in the Trump program of giving them $1,000 on the way out, as well as a kick in the butt.
Yeah.
A pat on the back and a kick in the butt. And that's $1,000 a person.
Well,
and it makes sense for us to do it because that's what it costs us to throw them out.
By bringing the criminal charges, the DOJ forces even the most resistant localities to participate. It's genius, really. No more hiding behind local politics. The results speak for themselves. Georgia's Northern District went from prosecuting just a handful of cases monthly under Biden to 45 in May. Massachusetts jumped from 1 case per month to 43. Even sanctuary strongholds can no longer serve as safe havens for immigration lawbreakers. Remember when they said this couldn't be done. The transformation extends beyond prosecution numbers, gotaways. Illegal immigrants who escape into the country undetected have plummeted down 90%. Let that sink in for a moment. 90%. The White House projects this fiscal year will see fewer illegal immigrant encounters in 5 decades.
And you can see the impact of that based on the previous story we did about congressional apportionment, because everybody understands that once they're out of the country, they can't be counted. And the entire democratic structure of a close fight in the House of Representatives, and the Democrats hope to take back control, is predicated on illegal voters who are counted in the census. But if they're not here, they can't be counted. And ultimately, the Trump program of deportations and the prosecutions are the answer to this problem.
And he's going after the sanctuary cities also. So not only the illegal immigrants that are coming in and then staying or whatever they're doing, he's also going after sanctuary cities. So there's consequences for what this guy's doing.
Yep.
And there's no bluff. You know, this is it. We got to take a break. See, we're getting all hyper over here and yelling and screaming like real Italians. All right, we'll see you on the other side.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And bear in mind that if you go to a sleep disorder center, don't fall asleep in the bathroom because they could be filming you.
What?
There was just a story that they're prosecuting people, are asking for damages for people who were filmed in the bathroom at a sleep disorder center. And they just didn't fall asleep.
Hey, listen, let me just, I got to ask if anyone could call in and know what this is. I tell you all the time, when you go in certain bathrooms with airports or whatnot, do you ever think about the Wizard of Oz? Why am I saying that? Let's just think about it. All right, come on, tell the story, but think about it, people.
I don't think of the Wizard of Oz.
There's a reason. There's a reason.
Right, okay.
Someone will know.
There's an organization called VoteWithYourFeet.net that talks about the changes in population going on in the U.S. For those who are worried about America or worried about pessimism and feel pessimistic, understand the ultimate trends. First, America is becoming less and less composed of illegal immigrants, and therefore the Democrats are going to get less and less political power. And that at the same time, within the states, the red states, the Republican states, are gaining population, and the blue states are losing them. The red states are 9 out of the 10 population gainers. The big population gainer is Utah, and the other Idaho. And the other western states are among the fastest growing. So the world is tipping, at least in the U.S., dramatically in favor of Trump and the Republicans. Now, a big part of this is that U.S. tariff revenues are soaring as a result of the tariffs that Trump is imposing. As of the end of July, the U.S. has collected, past tense, more than $150 billion this year from export duties. And the Yale University Budget Lab predicts that if all of Trump's announced tariffs are approved, and they all are being approved, they will generate $2.7 trillion through 2025. Incredible numbers.
Wow.
And really compares to $2.4 trillion generated by the income taxes. This is such a conceptual shift. It means that the United States, having subsidized the rest of the world for the entire post-World War II period, now is going to be subsidized by the rest of the world. Right. If you think that's unfair, it's simply redressing an imbalance that's existed under the Democrat rule for 40 years.
Right. Pay your fair share, like all the Democrats always say. Let the rich pay their fair share. Here you go.
So there is gigantic change happening. And between that and the growth of industry and business in the U.S. as a result of the tariff revenues and the potential for tax relief in the U.S. because of the tariff revenues and manufacturing moving to the United States to take advantage of not having a tariff if you make your products here in the U.S. and the job growth that's going to cause in the United States. This is a very, very, very happy world.
It's unbelievable. Now, the DOJ names sanctuary cities and policies, all the different states. The U.S. Justice Department has released a list of state, cities, and counties it has identified as being sanctuary jurisdictions, and Connecticut is on them. U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi, Attorney General Pam Bondi, said in a statement on Tuesday that the U.S. Department of Justice will continue bringing litigation against sanctuary jurisdictions and work with the Department of Homeland Security to eradicate these harmful policies around the country. The Justice Department has placed 13 states, 4 counties, and 18 cities on the list and said they have policy laws or regulations that impede enforcement of a federal
Let me just at least read the states that are included. California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, D.C., Illinois, Minnesota, Nevada, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington. And
the counties, Baltimore, Cook County, Illinois, San Diego, California, San Francisco, California, the cities, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Berkeley, California, Boston, Chicago, Denver, East Lansing, Michigan, Hoboken, Jersey, Jersey City, Jersey, Los Angeles, California, New Orleans. There's too many. New York City, Newark, Patterson, forget about it. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they're even doing it. Sanctuary policies that impede the law enforcement and put American citizens at risk by design, Bondi said in a statement. The Department of Justice will continue bringing litigations against sanctuary jurisdictions and work closely with the Department of Homeland Security to eradicate these harmful policies around the country.
Now, we've reported in the past that a number of conservative groups have found that bank accounts suddenly closed.
Oh, yeah.
In many cases, their assets seized. But certainly, at least, they're not allowed to use their checking accounts anymore. And the organization has to basically shut down. Now, banks that discriminate against conservatives may find themselves under federal investigation as Trump prepares a new executive order. The Wall Street Journal reported that it's seen a draft of the order which frames debanking conservatives, that is, closing bank accounts of conservatives just because you don't like them. And the order says that that's a violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, antitrust laws, and laws protecting consumers. The order could be signed this week, and punishment would come from fines or other tools. And the order would allow regulators to refer banks to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution in certain cases. Now,
doesn't this go against capitalism 100%?
Yeah,
you're right. It's a bank.
It's banks that are so ideological that they're willing to lose revenue, close accounts, lose customers.
Oh my God!
Because they want to punish the left, and there are a large number of banks that do that, including very prominent national banks. And there have been a lot of stories about that, and it's wonderful to see the Feds cracking down on it. And as is true always in banking, once the Feds are doing it, it's going to stop because bankers are the most cautious people in the world, and they're not going to risk themselves being subjected to those kinds of fines.
It's unbelievable. It's hard to believe that
when we get back, we'll talk about the Russiagate scandal, which is now on the other foot. The scandal is the cover-up of the fact that there was no basis for prosecuting the Russian collusion scandal.
And you know where
there was no Russian collusion.
And you know where that foot's going to go up.
Yep. Yeah. Hillary.
Right. When we get back, up your butt.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
One quick thing, Dick. Anyone that listens to us, which is everyone listening right now, right, knows that commercial. they sped up your voice. You never speak like that fast.
No, I don't.
And it's amazing that it doesn't change the.
I don't. I never talk like that. I never talk that fast.
That's me.
Yeah.
And
it's only when I do Patriot Gold Group ads at time for 60, and really I write them in the 75, so that I talk that fast.
And it's amazing, new technology. It doesn't change the pitch, But anyway, I have
the pitch is always the same. By
yeah,
Patriot
that's
Gold.
right.
Yeah.
That's the pitch. Okay, got it.
So many people ask me, so when is somebody going to be held account for the scandals of the Biden years?
Right.
And now Bondi looks to be on the verge of appointing a special prosecutor to bring indictments under the Russiagate hoax. And I think that that's going to be very significant. And what we're then going to be watching is a chain of testimony that's probably going to start with Lisa Strzok and her
boyfriend?
Her boyfriend, Page. Lisa Page
and Strzok.
Peter Strzok.
Yeah.
And
he struck the page.
A bunch of those folks are going to be prosecuted.
Good.
And then probably they're going to plead up, and you're going to see Brennan and Comey prosecuted.
And rat out Obama.
Then
see, that's the thing, though.
That's it. And then they rat out Obama, and it turns out that this entire scandal that almost destroyed the presidency and took up 4 years of our national life by covering was totally phony and completely made up, and was concocted by the Hillary Clinton campaign that had to explain why they were falling behind the guy named Donald Trump.
And Trump achieved so much. Could you imagine how much more he would have achieved if he didn't have to deal with that for 4 years?
Yeah, he sure would.
That's what bothers me.
And he almost was thrown out of office over that. So the chain here of evidence is pretty clear, and you have to follow it up the ladder. Now, the real question is going to come after all of those people are convicted. Will Obama be convicted? And the evidence is that, Brennan brought him information that was false, that said that there was a conspiracy between Trump and the Kremlin to fix the election. And Obama, knowing it was false, announced that this had been found by the FBI, and that ratified and lent credibility to all of the news reports for 2 years, including some Pulitzer Prizes, based on false information. Now, the question is, did Obama know it was false when he issued it? And is he exempt from prosecution
as a sitting
because of
president?
A Trump case that went before the U.S. Supreme Court that everybody said this case is to protect Donald Trump? Well, in fact, it's now turning out to be a case that's protecting Barack Obama, because it says that a president cannot be prosecuted for after he leaves office for stuff that happened while he was in office.
Exactly, but I bet they're going to find stuff that when he was out that he lied about her. I don't know.
Not under oath, no.
Not under oath.
He probably has not testified under oath to anything since he left office for precisely that reason. Let's go to Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello. Hello, Dick and Doug.
Hello.
So I came into your show as you were speaking about Ukraine, so I'm going to say what I had in mind. I think that this is going to be difficult for Donald Trump because he said he's going to try to get them to swap territories. And what I read about Zelensky, he's set in his ways. He said he vowed on Saturday he will not cede any of its territories to Russia. As part of the peace deal, he said that in the Constitution of Ukraine will not gift their land to the occupier. He said that Ukrainians deserve peace, but all partners must understand what a dignified peace is. He insists Ukraine will not reward Russia for what they did to them. And then I say to myself, you don't reward bad behavior when you're raising children, but I think Trump has a very tough thing going forward with these two.
I think
That's
that
what
what's going to happen is, thanks, Sandra. I think that what's going to happen is that the issue of the lands in the East that Russia has seized militarily and now wants to assimilate legally, is going to be a matter of international litigation for decades. And the issue will be, is Russia entitled to do that? And what level of sovereignty will they have over these territories? And I think that ultimately most of those territories would vote to be Russian. And I think Putin knows that, and I think Zelensky knows that. The problem is that Zelensky can't say it's okay for Russia to keep those areas because there have been so many people killed to try to stop them from keeping it. And politically, when you're trying to end a war, one of the real problems is trying to stop your own people from wanting to end the war, from wanting to continue the war. And I think that probably with the deal that's going to be cut is some variant of NATO admissions, not emissions, NATO admissions in return for giving up those eastern territories. I think that they may tell Ukraine, okay, you can go into NATO, or you can't go into NATO, but we'll give you a separate peace agreement with NATO where NATO guarantees you against invasion. Because the real issue for Ukraine is not so much
what's the difference between being in NATO or getting the protections of NATO? Isn't it the same thing?
It is, but it's more important to be in it because
you vote.
The fact that you're in it is how the whole rest of the world is protected, and it's a precedent that nobody would break. Okay. For example, if the Russians invade Estonia, it's very different than they're invading Ukraine, because Estonia is a member of NATO and Ukraine is not. At that point, Germany and Britain and France all rally to NATO because their own existence is at stake. But I think that the answer is that there be some guarantee given to Ukraine that Russia will not be back trying to conquer it, and in return you give Russia control over those territories. And I think you're talking about some face-saving compromise that permits the Russians to claim that they have not conceded those territories, but permits Ukraine to say they have not recognized the Russian invasion. And that kind of semantic difference can save millions of lives.
It's amazing.
Let's go to Pete in Lakewood. Hi, Pete.
Hello, Pete.
Okay.
All right. Got Eddie in New York. Hey, Eddie.
Hi, how you doing, Dick, and everybody else? Look, I think Donald Trump is doing a masterful job, and let me lay it out for you this way. He is negotiating with so many people around the world. He's bringing down conflicts. He has stopped many wars around the world, and I think what he's doing is bringing the world to a table where they can all participate in a global economy and nobody's left out. Donald Trump thinks big.
Yeah.
And I think this is an overriding thing that's happening throughout the world, and it's exciting to see.
It is, Eddie, and those are great words for you to say.
All right.
But let me be a little honest about it. Donald Trump is forcing the rest of the world to behave itself.
He's the boss.
By threatening tariffs on those countries. And he's forcing aggressors to stop aggressing. He's forcing countries to make peace with each other. And he's forcing countries to pay for access to the U.S. market and to stop discriminating against U.S. products. And all of these changes are brought about not by gentle, subtle persuasion by Donald Trump, but his capacity to raise tariffs on the U.S. He's taken something that the rest of the world took for granted, which is access to the American market, and he's imposed an admissions price. Unless you pay the admissions price, you are left out and you are screwed. And the only way you can get back in is by Trump's approval. And it's really creating a sort of world police force led by Donald Trump as the top cop.
He's the boss of bosses.
And he's not misusing that. The only exception to that really is Russia and China. Russia simply because of oil. But if Trump permits secondary sanctions against Russia, the oil will not be significant. And in any case, the oil drilling that the U.S. is doing is far outstripping Russia. We now produce 13 million barrels a day. The Russians are down to 11 million. And as that gap expands, Russia's power decreases exponentially. And at the same time,
What were we like a year ago or 2 years ago?
Well, more importantly, about 5 years ago when fracking started, we were at 7 million. Now we're at 13.
Wow.
And the other thing that Trump has done is to go after China. And what he's doing with China is saying that he's going to force effective tariffs against China and close the huge trade gap we've had with China. China replies that they have a monopoly of rare earth minerals that the U.S. needs and doesn't have, and that it's going to use that monopoly to counter what Trump is doing. What Trump is doing to counter that is opening rare earth mineral mines in the United States and legalizing those that we have, so that no longer is leverage that Russia has against the U.S. So you're right, but don't be so kind to Donald Trump. He's doing it by being a tough SOB and really using the global system in a very effective way.
It's funny. He is tough. He's a New York tough guy. But I've been with him so many times at Mar-a-Lago and walking around with him and just talking with him. And I don't see it because I like him. He's a kind of a friend. We were friendly. I don't know, friend, It's funny. I always call him boss. We walk around and go, hey, boss, come here. Let me show you something. He goes, what do you got? What do you got? And a lot of people say, Mr. President, can I have your ear for 30 seconds? I go, boss, come here. And I talk like that. But it's funny. We were in the Oval Office about a month ago or so, maybe a little more. And I couldn't call him boss. I had to say Mr. President. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just a different feel. It was funny. It was great. But, hey, boss, come here. Let me show you something. What do you got, Doug? Okay.
When we come back, Trump is changing the whole game with federal workers because the court is now allowing him to end collective bargaining by government workers.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Yeah, and, Trump being the boss of bosses, here's another thing. The court lets Trump end collective bargaining for government workers. A Ninth Circuit Appeals Court panel lifted a judge's prior order to prevent Trump's administration from allowing hundreds of thousands of federal workers from engaging in union bargaining with federal agencies. This case could be headed to the Supreme Court, where we hope these collective bargaining agreements are ended altogether. We can't have politicians negotiating with the very labor bosses who elected them in the first place.
And this is particularly true with certain government agencies. The IRS has no business having a collective union that bargains with the administration. The IRS, if you work for the IRS, if you work for the FBI, if you're a member of the armed forces, you give up the right to be a union member. And that has become more important under Biden, and now I think Trump may end it.
Basically, the order of command is basically what this is about. You have a commander-in-chief, you have your boss. You can't have a union people trying to bargaining different things.
Right.
It's like the military, like you said. You don't bargain with a general. The general tells you to do something. You say how high.
Now, Netanyahu is changing the game in the Middle East. He's reportedly made a major shift in Israel's Gaza policy, signaling that the IDF, the Israeli army, will now pursue a full military occupation of the Gaza Strip to bring about the defeat of Hamas and its allied terror factions. The development, covered extensively by Israeli media, represents a watershed moment in Israel's ongoing war after the October 7th massacre. According to a report at the Israeli National News, Netanyahu communicated in secret meetings with cabinet members that Israel's military campaign must go beyond containment or partial dismantling of Hamas's infrastructure and reportedly used the explicit term occupation of the Strip, underscoring the determination to restore Israeli control in areas long dominated by Hamas. Very, very important development.
Wow.
And extraterrestrial in the news. Doug?
Yeah, I was trying to get Lux to play To the Moon, Alice, but we didn't get it. I just did it. NASA plans nuclear power plant on the moon. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who also serves as interim NASA administrator, will be announcing plans to build a nuclear reactor on the moon. Duffy plans an expedited timeline to build a reactor on the moon and comes as NASA faces a massive budget cut. He also wants to quickly replace the International Space Station as part of efforts to beat China to reaching the moon and Mars. While NASA is facing cuts of 50% for science missions, the White House has proposed a budget that will increase human spaceflight in 2026. NASA plans to solicit industry proposals for a 100-kilowatt nuclear reactor to launch by 2030. NASA previously funded research in a 40-kilowatt reactor for use on the moon, hoping to have it ready to launch next decade. The directive from Duffy orders NASA... What did I just say? The directive from Duffy orders NASA to designate a leader for the effort and to get industry input within 60 days. The agency's timeline to launch the reactor matches when China plans to put an astronaut on the moon. NASA will be awarding 2 companies a contract with 6 months of the agency's request for proposals to fix the International Space Station. The goal is to have a new space station by 2030 to ensure China is not the only country with a permanently crewed space station in orbit. Thank you.
Yeah.
To the moon, Alice.
Be a lot of fun. We've covered extensively how CBS has now been taken over legally by Paramount and is no longer part of the liberal coalition, the left coalition that controls the media. And we've also talked extensively last week about how the FCC is enforcing the law to require that ABC be more respectful of the power of its affiliates and that it take more account of what they want. So those are 2 very significant changes. But the third network that's undergoing heavy change it won't happen until Rupert Murdoch dies. At the center of the succession battle lies the Murdoch Family Trust, created in 1999 to control the family's stakes in both Fox and News Corp. The trust control, this, by the way, is the real-life equivalent of that TV series Succession. The trust controls more than 40% of the voting power of both companies, effectively granting the family dominance through a dual-share structure. Currently, Rupert Murdoch wields 4 votes, with his 4 eldest children, Lachlan, James, Elizabeth, and Prudence, holding 1 each. Upon Murdoch's death, his votes will be evenly divided, giving each child 2 votes and equal say in the company's future. Lachlan Murdoch, currently chairman of News Corp and CEO of Fox Corp, was positioned by his father as the heir apparent following his retirement in 2023. But the transition is far from settled. Tensions escalated in 23 when Rupert attempted to amend the trust to give Lachlan sole control after his death. The move triggered legal challenges from his siblings who argued that it violated the trust's principle of equal governance. A Nevada court sided against Rupert in 24, but an appeal remains pending. The trust structure, coupled with its 2030 expiration date, sets the stage for a potential power struggle. Analysts warn that a deadlock among the siblings could paralyze corporate decision-making, unsettle shareholders, and even spark the dismantling of Rupert Murdoch's enterprise. Observers believe Lachlan's siblings, particularly James Murdoch, known for his far-left views, could unite to challenge his leadership. James had previously criticized Fox and News Corp for legitimizing disinformation and resigned from the News Corp board over editorial disagreements. James is a leftist. James and his wife, Catherine Murdoch, have donated tens of millions to Democratic candidates and other left-wing causes. In 2020, the couple gave more than $100 million to political causes that appeared linked to anti-Trump efforts. Murdoch biographer Michael Wolff predicts a scenario in which James and his sisters could vote Laughlin out and sell key assets, including the Wall Street Journal and the Times of London.
Well, let me ask you, do you know of Laughlin to be more on the right? Is that why Rupert put his son Laughlin? Is he more right-leaning?
Yeah, well, Laughlin is sane. And
no, not saying he's sane.
Laughlin is in his right mind.
Right.
And James is a crazy, ridiculous leftist.
Like most lefts.
As Murdoch's health declines, the question of succession becomes urgent. Industry insiders agree the fate of the world's most influential media dynasties hinges not on corporate boards or market forces, but on whether the four siblings can find common ground or plunge the father's empire into civil war.
It hinges on whether a family can stay together or not, is what it hinges on.
No, they're already out.
Yeah, right.
The issue is, do they kill each other or not?
Right.
Yeah.
The strong wins, right?
Now, Robert Kennedy, when he took office, pledged to reform the whole vaccine approval process, and tell them about how that's happening.
All right, but what is mRNA, Dick? I don't even know what that is.
It must be the agency in charge
of the thing. Okay. The Department of Health and Human Services is winding down its mRNA, which I don't know what that is.
Oh, no,
vaccine.
that.
That's the name of the vaccine.
RNA is the name of your body has RNA in it. DNA and RNA. And RNA is a part of your genetic messenger system. And mRNA vaccines were designed to stop the transmission of diseases.
Right.
But Robert Kennedy said, we reviewed the science, listened to the experts, and acted. The winding down will include cancellation of some $500 million of contracts with mRNA producers.
So BARDA is terminating 22 mRNA vaccine development investments because the data show these vaccines fail to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and flu. We're shifting that funding towards safer, broader vaccine platforms that remain effective even as viruses mutate. The Food and Drug Administration has approved this mRNA vaccine from Moderna and Pfizer to treat COVID-19. HHS's decision comes after it said it conducted a comprehensive review of this related investments that began during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it signals a broader shift in federal vaccine policy under Kennedy, who has admitted being skeptical of this RNA technology.
mRNA. Of course, Pfizer's profits for the year of the heavy COVID vaccination, 2021 and 22, were overwhelmingly dependent on revenues from the vaccine and the national program to get everybody to get shots, including firing workers who didn't do that, and even Army members who wouldn't get the shot. And now the scientific data coming out is indicating that the shot may be far less than effective.
Yeah.
And Kennedy is moving to limit the requirements for those vaccines.
Just somewhat recently, at least a couple of months ago, I saw another commercial, get your COVID shot. And I go, wow, they're still pushing this thing. And
they still make money from it.
And on the plane the other day, I see people with masks and walking. I almost want to say, hey, how you doing? What's with the mask? I don't. I can't start something that I have to deal with.
So we've all been wondering who's going to succeed Trump.
And here we
bear
go.
In mind, we'd like him to be president for a long time.
So
he's indicated that he will have to leave in 2028, and he does not seek any constitutional change.
So here's the president. Vice President J.D. Vance is most likely the heir to the MAGA movement. President Trump said Tuesday, although he stipulated it's too early to tell. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said last month that Vance would be a great nominee for the Republican Party in 28, should he decide to run for the White House. I like Marco, Bondi, even Pirro I like now, but I know that's not going to happen, but how great. Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president, Trump said after signing the executive order creating a task force to lead the federal coordination for 28 Los Angeles Olympics. He is the vice president. So
yeah.
He's most
I think that you're likely to see challenges to Vance from Rubio and maybe from Pam Bondi.
I like her.
That's more my idea.
We had a couple other people I was thinking about that I thought were pretty good. I'll get to it later.
But I think it'll focus on
Vance.
people in the administration. Maybe Homan.
I like him. But I don't see Vance. I don't see him a lot. I don't hear about him a lot.
Vice president. They're supposed to be seen and not heard.
Right. No, but I'd like to hear him because I do like him when he gets
His
something.
speeches are wonderful,
Yeah.
and he's been very effective vice president. And it ain't easy to be Donald Trump's vice president.
You ain't kidding.
I can say it's not easy being his consultant.
And it's not easy being his artist either.
Actually, it is easy being his consultant, but he's a hell of a nice
No,
guy.
the best thing,
Yeah.
and I know I told this story like 2 or 3 shows ago, but I got to say it again. We're sitting at dinner, and we have this guy who's great, and he's going to help us with Ethiopia and this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. So Dick calls the president. It's like 6 o'clock at night. We're having dinner, and he says, Mr. President, I want you to meet this guy. He's great. He can help us with whatever the deal was. And the president goes, wow, that sounds great. Send the story to one of my guys, and I'll look it over tomorrow. And Dick says, but Mr. President, please, I really want you to meet the guy. If we can just come see you tomorrow. We're in Washington now, And he says, well, I'm really busy, Dick. I got to tell you. He goes, Mr. President, please, I really would like to, you to meet this guy. And he goes, I'm really busy, Dick. I'm telling you, I'm really busy. He goes, please, Mr. President, I really, really would want to see. He goes, Dick, I am the President of the United States. Come tomorrow. I'll give you 5 minutes. It was great.
And we did get to see him.
And we went to the Oval. But the way he said it, though, Dick, it sounds like an old friend or your brother. Come on, Joe. Come on. I got to get that. I am the president of the United States. It was great the way he said it. So let's go to Ray in New York. Hey, Ray, an old friend of mine.
Hey, Dougie, Dick, how are you guys?
Good.
Everything
How are
great?
you?
So, what you got?
All right. Talking about the camera in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
So about 20 years ago, me, my wife, and my kids, we're getting ready to travel. We're down at Kennedy Airport. And one of my sons, Ray, Doug.
Yeah.
He had to go to the bathroom. Okay? So I bring him in. He's in the stall. He's like 5 years old or whatever it was. 8. And he finishes up. He comes out. And he says, Dad, the guy was looking at me through the holes in the petition because they were missing a toilet paper rack.
In the partition.
No.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No.
So I said, all right, come on, wash up.
I'm going to beat his
I
ass.
bring him out. I point over. I said, go to your mother. I have to go to the bathroom now. It's my turn.
I know what you did.
Right. So I did what I had to do, use your imagination. I'm walking out of the bathroom. Who opens the door for me? Charlton Heston.
No.
Wow.
Oh, my God. Yeah. And I said, hi, how are you? I just walked right by him.
Yeah.
And make a long story
it's a good
short,
thing you didn't stop with him because he'd have given you a gun.
Oh, my God. So he comes out immediately yelling for help.
Yeah.
And,
That's it.
And
Good story.
life goes on.
Good.
Yeah,
Good story.
yeah.
How's Ray anyway?
No, he's good. He's good.
Good,
He's recovered from his accident and all of that. Everything's good.
All right.
Good.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks for
Appreciate
asking.
Thank you. Thanks for
All right,
calling in.
bye-bye.
We mentioned that that Trump is really changing the game in Ukraine. And one of the reasons is that NATO and the U.S. have started coordinating regular deliveries of large weapons packages to Ukraine. to Ukraine after the Netherlands said it would provide air defense equipment, ammunition, and other military aid worth 500 million euros. Sweden also announced Tuesday it would contribute 275 million to a joint effort, along with Denmark and Norway, to provide 500 million of air defenses, anti-tank weapons, ammunition, and spare parts. The two deliveries of equipment, most of it bought from the U.S., are expected this month, although the Nordic package is expected to arrive in September. The equipment is supplied basically on Ukraine's priority needs on the battlefield. Packages will be prepared rapidly and delivered on a regular basis, so Ukraine does not have to wait for Christmas time. But if, on the other hand, you're seeing progress toward a peace deal with Ukraine, and that Trump may announce on Friday, you can't divorce that from these weapons deals where it's clear that Europe is really stepping up, whether directly with stuff they make or stuff we make, but we ship through them. And Santa Claus is coming to town.
I wonder if some of these countries buy our munitions and weapons and then give them to Ukraine.
Yeah,
does that ever happen?
That's what it is.
That's kind of cool.
That's
so we don't have to give up
that's what
everything.
I'm talking about. Yeah.
Love it. All right. So when we get back, what are we talking about?
Well,
the GOP
the
threatens
big
rules.
issue now that Trump has is he has dozens of appointments to federal judgeships that are being held up by Democrats in the Senate.
Oh, right.
And they're using all kinds of blocks to do so. We'll talk about that when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Our friend Linda's calling us. So how
Hi,
you doing,
Linda.
Hi.
And we do love you, by the way.
Great guy. You two great guys. I couldn't believe it. I called you a couple of weeks ago because I heard the list of names of all the people they're investigating now, with all the crimes, the Hillary crimes. And I never heard her name. They never mentioned her. So I called, and Dick, you said to me, don't worry. They're going that way, and she'll be next. Yeah. And then right after that, I heard her name.
Yeah.
I said, there's something wrong with me. I can't hear.
Well, good. I used to talk about Hillary a lot, but I was on the other side.
Hillary loves you.
Glad to be on this side.
But she loves you still.
Yeah.
She'd love to see you.
She sends me cards every Christmas, but I don't open them because there's white powder on the outside.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. So the Republicans berated Schumer for their unprecedented blocks of president's nominees and noted that every pick has been filibustered except for Rubio. We've been working through the list, but there's a large backlog because of the unprecedented filibuster by the Democrats of every nominee. If they don't change their behavior, we're going to have to change how things are done here because the president needs to have his team in place. Now, normally, the Senate can change the rules for how the confirmation process works. And normally, it would take 67 votes to change it. But there is a way that they can do it without that. And there are ways they can bypass those rules. And what they're going to say at this point is, you know what they say, every action requires an equal reaction. Some of the options on the table include shortening the debate time for nominees, getting rid of procedural votes for some lower-level nominees, and grouping certain civilian nominees en blanc, meaning that it's already, as it was already done for military nominees. It's like all generals get confirmed. At the committee level, deciding whether to lower the number of nominees subject to the confirmation process. This has gotten really berserk. The lower-level employees go through right away, but the senior employees have to go through confirmation and takes forever to get confirmed. And as a result, these agencies are basically headless.
Horrible.
Which is not a good thing to be. Doug?
So, Adam for Brains faces criminal referrals for mortgage fraud. I mean, Adam Schiff.
This is known as what goes around comes around.
Yes. Adam Schiff, California, is under criminal investigation for mortgage fraud. Oh, really? Laura Ingraham said a criminal investigation is being conducted by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland on possible charges involving mortgage fraud. The investigation comes a month after a story broke about the Federal Housing Finance Agency sending a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, alleging that Schiff, for Brains, in multiple instances falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms. In 2011, affidavits signed by then California Congressman Schiff certified that a property in Montgomery County, Maryland, is his primary residence. Schiff also owns a condominium in Burbank, California, which he has also claimed as a primary resident as recently as 2023 during his campaign for Senate. What do you think of that?
What goes around comes around.
Bye-bye.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier about the way Trump is getting this deal with Ukraine and Russia.
It's
and
beautiful.
A big part of this is India. Explain it there.
The latest move comes 2 days before Trump's Friday deadline for Russia to come to the negotiating table on a ceasefire on the war in Ukraine, after which Trump promised up to 100% secondary sanctions, as you talked about before, on countries buying goods from Russia. It also marks the latest instance of Trump wielding his sweeping tariffs to further a larger political agenda and bend international relations to his will. But there's a dual purpose here. Trump has singled out India, a big importer of Russian crude oil, over the last few weeks as trade negotiations begin with the two countries since they began and have fallen flat. No formal actions have been taken yet against China, the biggest importer of the oil. The breakdown. Indian officials at one point were so confident that they could pull off a deal that they told media that the tariff could be max 15%, but that deal never came through. The officials on both sides said a mix of political misjudgment, missed signals, and bitterness broke down the deal between the world's biggest and fifth largest economy. After all, it wasn't that long ago that Vance was in what is that, Dick? With his family touting the U.S. and India. It was in India.
There's another view on that, or the key view that I want to read, which is a statement by Peter Navarro. He said, we've got India, the Maharaja of tariffs, the highest tariffs. They charge the highest tariffs they charge us of any major company. So they sell us a bunch of stuff, but we can't sell them anything. They use the money we give them to buy Russian oil. And then Russia uses the oil to fund the war machine. And then the United States has to go and provide defense expenditure aid to Ukraine. So what's wrong with this picture? And the President Trump, recognizes this chessboard. China's implicated, India's implicated, some other countries of the world, and he's vowed to stop that crazy math and crack down on it. So there's a lot of moving parts. But the good news is that we keep knocking out good trade deals, one after another: Japan, Korea, Indonesia, Philippines, the EU. And with those deals, we're not only leveling the playing field, we're actually creating big, good deals for investment for the country. You take the Japan deal, it's going to be like amazing. Korea, it's all good, and we got to keep on pressing. The president understands the connection between economic security, national peace, and war and peace.
Amazing.
But the key thing he's doing with India is saying, if you buy Russian oil, we are going to sanction you and raise tariffs on the oil you buy from us. And India produces very little oil. It's dependent on imports, largely from Russia. And that's why the Ukraine war may be settled, not because of anything happening on the battlefield, but because Trump may be announcing secondary sanctions on India.
And they're not going to buy oil from Russia, and Russia's going to lose some jack.
Right.
Okay. So Kennedy wants to ban junk foods from SNAP. On Monday, a powerful announcement from the National Mall marked a shift that's long overdue. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., joined by the USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary, celebrated the expansion of SNAP reform.
SNAP means food stamps.
Right. Celebrated the expansion of SNAP reform to 6 new states, bringing the total to 12 that have officially banned the purchase of junk food with food stamps.
We talked earlier in the program at some length about illegal immigrants in the U.S., and Trump has ordered to get states to conduct a review of their residents, but not include illegal immigrants. If it comes to fruition, it could shift several seats from states with large immigrant populations and could spark some healthy constitutional questions. Trump said people who are not in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter. A slimmed-down census count without the immigrants has long been the goal of some conservatives who argue for it on the grounds of principle and politics. They say illegal immigrants aren't part of the broader body politic that should be counted. They fear Democratic-led localities in states could end up with more seats in Congress than legislatures when illegal immigrants are counted. But the text of the Constitution says that the count shall be based on, quote, the whole number of free persons.
Wait, stop. It should be the whole number of all people,
That's
whether
right.
they're immigrants or not.
Yeah, and the infamous 3/5 compromise for counting enslaved Africans is going to be ended. So that's going to be a major constitutional fight. But as I said earlier in the show, it's a fight that is being solved by the deportations that Trump is imposing and by the voluntary departures in the wake of those deportations.
Yeah, but like you said, that could be 10 years before they're, really evens
That's
out.
right.
But, it's funny. So many times, like Nancy Pelosi or somebody on the left say, oh, the Constitution was written so long ago. Well, that's part of it. It's so long ago that this thing with the census, about the slaves, you know what I mean? And that's no more. So, they like to talk about it was written so long ago. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Trump signs an order on transparency in college admissions. This is going to be great when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Stuck in the Middle with You show. Dick Morris and Doug DePiro, sponsored by the Patriot Gold.
Yeah, but thank God I'm on the right, so I could be one of the jokers, not
right.
one of the morons.
We're jokers to the left, right? Yeah, you're...
No, morons to the left, jokers to the... I don't know what it says. President Donald Trump signed an order requiring higher education institutions receiving federal money to be more transparent about their admission practices. Education Secretary Linda McMahon will be directed to change data collection protocols for the integrated post-secondary education data system to make it easily accessible to the general public, including parents and prospective university students. The memorandum instructs the Secretary of Education to expand the scope of required reporting for institution admissions data in order to provide adequate transparency as determined by the Secretary of Education. The fact sheet reads, the Education Department will subsequently increase accuracy checks for data submitted through the system and take actions against universities that fail to submit the data in a timely or complete manner. The purpose is to help ensure that universities have ended race-based admission practices in accordance with the Supreme Court's 23 Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard case. President Trump is ending discriminatory practices that are illegal, strip opportunities and scholarships from hardworking students, and waste taxpayers' dollars, according to the fact sheet. Despite the ruling, the White House remains concerned that universities will continue race-based admissions under the radar unless they are forced to report data to the federal government. Specifically, it is concerned that using diversity statements and other measures constitutes hidden racial proxies that could be used to accomplish the same end. The White House said the move is about holding elite universities accountable and making sure they promote merit and American values. This follows previous executive orders attempting to end diversity, equity, and inclusion programs on university campuses, suspended the entry of foreign nationals to exchange programs at Harvard, and prevent biological males from playing in women's sports. Today, go on, Dick.
In Florida, Governor DeSantis has signed into a law that requires every employer with more than 25 workers to use Homeland Security's E-Verify program that distinguishes who's here legally from who's here illegally.
It also bans local governments from issuing identification cards to illegal immigrants, empowers state law enforcement to suspend the business license of companies found employing illegal immigrants, and requires hospitals to record the immigration status of all patients, including emergency room visits. The same so-called experts who said Trump's enforcement-only policy wouldn't work said Florida's law would also fail to stop illegal immigration. They warned that even if the law did work to decrease the illegal immigration policy in the state, it will tank the Sunshine State's economy. The experts were proven wrong on both fronts.
And in very big news, Trump is now allowing cryptocurrencies to be used to pay or contribute to your 401k account. Signed the executive order opening the $9 trillion retirement market to cryptocurrencies and other alternative assets. Typical 401k plans enable individuals to invest in a variety of assets, including stocks and bonds. The current administration is poised to introduce changes to conventional retirement accounts. Under a new executive order, the Department of Labor will review fiduciary guidelines governing private market investments, such as private equity and alternative investments within 401k rules. This would dramatically transform stuff and give a huge increase in the value and importance of cryptocurrency, and marks one of the major transformations of the Trump administration. He's gone from being hostile to cryptocurrency under the previous administration to being very encouraging of it and opening up brand new markets for it.
And now this is my favorite story of the day. DOJ subpoenas Letitia James. The Justice Department has subpoenaed New York Attorney General Letitia James. Oh, I'm sorry, Letitia James.
What'd you call it,
Letitia James?
I thought you were Italian, not Jewish.
Doesn't matter what she is. She's going to jail. So Letitia James is a part of an investigation into whether she violated President Trump's civil rights, according to the people familiar with the matter. The subpoenas sought records related to the lawsuit James filed against Trump for allegedly overinflating his property values to obtain loans, even though Trump repaid those loans and even though the banks never complained. The subpoenas also sought records about the lawsuit involving the National Rifle Association. Another person confirmed that the subpoenas are related to civil rights investigation. What about her lying about the 4-family house she had when it was really a 3-family? So
yeah, that's separate. That's also proceeding against.
But that's different.
Yeah, mortgage fraud is becoming like income tax evasion for the mob.
Right.
Every
Get
Democrat
online.
is getting screwed by it.
Pick a number.
Schiff and now Letitia James.
For brains, shift for brains. The subpoena marked an escalation of the Trump administration's ongoing efforts to scrutinize officials who once waged lawfare against the president, including those like James, who had investigated him before his election win of last November. A spokesperson for James' office, Jeff Bergen, declined to confirm the subpoenas. Really? That's nice. In a separate statement, James' personal attorney called the subpoenas improper. Okay, sure. A spokesperson for the Justice Department, Natalie whatever, declined to comment. James, a Democrat, infamously promised on the campaign trail in 2018 that should target Trump if elected Attorney General. After taking office, she launched a lengthy and broad investigation into Trump and his organization, accusing him of all the stuff that he did. Last year, she won a $454 million judgment against him in a controversial lawsuit claiming he lied about the value of his assets in the financial state. Yeah, all right, honey, karma, baby. Now we're coming after you.
Yeah, that is
my
so
boss
nice.
is coming after you.
Yeah, it's so great. If we were playing music, I would do My Boyfriend's Back.
This is my favorite story of the day.
Yep.
I love it. It can't be better. What do you got?
Meantime, Trump is ordering military plans for action against drug cartels in Latin America. Trump has directed the Pentagon to prepare options to use military force against Latin American drug cartels. The options under discussion are focused on special forces operations, intelligence support, and precision targeting. Any military action will be coordinated with Mexico. So Trump is really getting serious about the criminal cartels in Mexico. And it's important to do that because Mexico is truly run by the drug gangs, and the government is fighting them and sometimes gets campaign contributions from them. But the idea of enlisting the U.S. military to fight against that is important.
You know, Dick,
now, thankfully, we don't use ground troops.
Yeah, right.
But the idea of intelligence support, targeting, and that kind of stuff could be very, very effective.
You know, I don't know if it was last week or the week before you did a list of what he has accomplished already in whatever this is, 7 months now or 8 months, right? And another 3 more things, this show. You know, it's amazing. But anyway, I just want to say it's an honor to be here with you, Dick Morris.
We have a great time.
Don't we? I'm the funny guy. You're the straight guy.
I love, what'd you call it?
LaShyster.
LaShyster James.
LaShyster James.
Adam Smith, you called.
Adam Schiff, 4 brains. You got to slow it down. Schiff, Schiff, 4 brains. Okay. Not to get in trouble, all right?
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?